Well, for a very brief moment, it looked like gas prices were actually coming down, and they were, but now they are inching back up again. Meanwhile, nations around the world are bracing for a possible recession. Hannah Cox, the co-founder of Based Politics, joins us to break that down. What's going on with gas prices? Why are we seeing them increase right now, Hannah?
Well, John, it's because basically we're doing everything that you would not be wanting to do if you actually wanted to bring down the price of gas prices right now. The Biden administration continues to hinder our domestic production, to put more regulations in the way, to try to limit how much offshore drilling we're doing and fracking. And all of that means that we are very dependent on other countries for our gases. So I think that Democrats know what needs to be done to bring down the price, but they're just not willing to do it because it would mean going the opposite way of their progressive agenda and actually getting government out of the way and letting the free market respond to this issue.
I want to put up a screen that shows where gas prices are right now. $3.90 a gallon is the average price these days. A month ago is down to $3.75, which actually seemed kind of cheap compared with where we had been. A year ago, it was $3.26. So, prices are way up, obviously, during the Biden administration. And, we know that he killed the Keystone Pipeline on day one. Is that part of the reason?
Well, absolutely it is. And I think when you look at gas prices, it's true for the same of many other things with prices. There's lots of things that contribute to this, but we do know that he's made some really bad decisions, particularly when it comes to the climate agenda, and shutting down the Keystone Pipeline was part of that. They also are looking at not renewing leases for offshore drilling. And so when you really kind of look at what their climate agenda entails, it's actually just a Trojan horse, right? Most of these things would not actually do that much to reduce the impacts of climate, but they would do things to make it harder for the poor people to survive in our country, because that's who this always hits the hardest. When you look at progressive ideas and how their agenda drives, it means the price of things is going to go up, and it means that the people who live on the margins are going to be the most impacted by that.
Meantime, if you don't want to burn oil because of your green concerns, why does it make sense to go begging to the Saudis and the Venezuelans to pump more oil when we're not going to be drilling it in this country?
I think that's the question of the day, and it points to the bigger issue with climate change and a lot of the policies behind it, which is that we are not the drivers of this. It's actually a lot of third world countries and other countries that are contributing at much worse rates than we are, and yet we continue to pummel our own resources and prohibit people from being able to develop our own resources here and to profit off of those, and instead make ourselves dependent on people. And again, none of this does anything to actually address the issues with climate. I think that there are real free market things we could be doing if we were concerned about that. This is really just a Trojan horse. It's what they're using to try to drive their progressive agenda and try to get all kinds of other things and policies done under the name of climate that really don't pertain to it. It really has a lot more to do with, I think, their socialist agenda and trying to drive everybody towards being more dependent on the state.
Meantime, let's talk about the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. It was enacted, it was, established to try to prevent, the kind of problems we saw in this country after the Arab oil embargo. It was supposed to be an emergency supply for big troubles. I don't think it was ever intended to, help a president keep gas prices down. But that's what has happened. If you look at the far right edge of this chart, we were up close to 750 million barrels in the oil reserves back in 2010. We're down to about 400 barrels now. It's half gone.
Well, and it's pretty alarming because, like you said, this is supposed to be for an emergency. This is not supposed to be because we have an economic illiterate DC and group of politicians who don't know how to actually micromanage an economy, but continue through arrogance to think that they can come in and that they can set prices and that they can shut down supply and that they can just continue to kind of play puppeteers and that none of this will come home to roost. But that's simply not the case. We're already dealing with the ramifications for what they've been doing for the past 2 years. And instead of waking up and realizing that central planning doesn't work, that micromanaging an economy is impossible, and that ultimately this hurts people, they continue to instead compound these kinds of actions and double down on the very things that got us in the problematic situation we're in the first place. So I think this is very alarming, and I think that we don't have serious people in charge at the moment.
Scary thought. Hannah Cox from Based Politics.